It's no secret that I love small phones, but what some of you might not know is that I used to love huge devices. One of my favourite phones of all time is the almighty Google Nexus 6. I used the iPhone 6s Plus for a long while too, so going into this review of the iPhone 12 Pro Max over a year after its release, I was excited to give a phablet a go again. Huge thanks to Vodafone UK for supplying today's subject matter. Hey guys, I'm Ryan Thomas and this is my review of the iPhone 12 Pro Max over a year later. This phone launched at $1049 here in the UK, brand new, and that's a pretty steep price. I mean, you are getting some of the highest end smartphones for that price, the iPhone 12 Pro Max being one of the highest end smartphones of its release period. Now you can get them on eBay used for around £750, which, while still a lot of money for a smartphone, is it's actually not 400, is it? It's £300 less. £300 less, let's go with that. And that's actually a pretty big saving. I mean, you can get some good smartphones for £300, so that's a substantial saving over the original base price. Do I think it's worth it for this kind of money? Well, yes and no, but we'll go into that going deeper into the video. What is worth mentioning though is that's the same price as the Galaxy S20 Ultra that I recently reviewed, and I think you get a lot more smartphone for your money with that thing. The iPhone doesn't sport the huge camera hardware package, the big 120Hz display, or sleek design, but if you're already an iPhone fan, and you want to use those squared off edges too, then at $750 it's not the worst deal. The iPhone 12 Pro Max does, however, look a bad deal compared to the brand new 13 Pro Max. On the surface they look identical, but the newer model has a significantly improved camera stack, support for ProRes video, a brand new 120Hz display, a more powerful processor, and a smaller notch. These things add up to quite a big difference, but of course you'll have to weigh up those pros with the four-figure con, if you'll pardon the pun. I think the iPhone 12 Pro Max does look good with the squared off edges, and I said that at the iPhone 12's release, but what I've always had an issue with is the ergonomics of such a squared off design. Now I think this works alright with the iPhone 12 mini because it kind of works with smaller hands, and if you have bigger hands I'm sure the iPhone 12 will be fine too, but the Pro Max just feels too big for something that is so unergonomic. And I think that even when you add a case on this thing, you know, it might feel a little bit better with the slightly curved edges, although again, when you're working with a squared off frame, it's kind of hard to implement that, but it just makes the phone feel huge. It is nice that it has IP68 water and dust resistance, and while Face ID is good, in the world of face masks, it's not ideal when you're out and about, not so bad when you're at home though. As I said before, the phone is huge, but that does have its positives. Let's look at the screen and battery. Starting with the former, it is a 6.7-inch 60Hz OLED panel with a max peak brightness of 1200 nits, which makes the display very bright. It's very viewable in direct sunlight, not that we get much of that here in the UK, but if you're into watching a lot of videos and films or playing games on your phone, you'll massively appreciate the big panel. My partner's had one of these smartphones for 8 to 9 months, and she loves the fact that she can watch just entire episodes on her lunch break on this thing because the screen is so big that it's actually quite viewable and quite a nice experience. Watching an episode of something on the 12 mini wouldn't feel quite as nice. And it's nice that the battery life keeps up with the 12 Pro Max's use case as well. I mean, it's a 3700 mAh battery, which is not all that impressive, but for an iPhone it is up there. And yes, it translates to real world usage. I got easily a full day, a day and a half with the 12 Pro Max. Granted, that's not really connected to like an Apple Watch and lots of other external devices. It was mostly Wi-Fi with a little bit of LTE, but you know, easily a full day, like comfortably a full day. And my partner gets a full day of usage absolutely fine with her model as well. She ends the day with about 30% battery, even if she is using it to watch an episode of something during our lunch break as well. So battery life is definitely a positive. And being that they're only a year and a bit old, getting them on the used market should have decent battery health anyway. Charging's not the fastest thing in the world, but you know, 20-watt charger, use something like an iPad charger, it's not that bad. Although it's not using the USB-C port, but you know, when are we going to get one of those on an iPhone? Performance is, like the 12 mini, very good. The A14 Bionic and 6 gigs of RAM propel the phone very handily, so anything you might want to do with this thing can be done. Long video recording sessions, high-end 3D gaming, or just poodling on socials, the 12 Pro Max takes it in its stride and will continue to do so for a good couple of years now if previous models are anything to go by. 1 year on, this is how I'd expect it to be, and Apple's fulfilled that expectation. Another thing that we expect from Apple is good software support, and the iPhone 6s recently got iOS 15, which is great. That's a 6-year-old smartphone. So expect this to get 17, 18, 19, 20, just a couple of years at least. No, scratch that, a few years at least. And as I say in all these reviews, if you're not an iOS person, I'm not going to try and convince you to switch. Stick with Android. I don't really care. It doesn't make me any money. Just know that iOS is very well supported going further down the line. Let's talk about cameras. The iPhone 12 Pro Max gets a bigger main sensor compared to the 12 Pro, as well as the 2.5 times zoom instead of the 2x on the Pro. This means the hardware of the 12 Pro Max is more capable than that of the 12 Pro, and to get you up to speed, there are 3 12 megapixel cameras on the back, including a main ultra wide and telephoto, joined by another 12 megapixel sensor up front next to the Face ID gubbins. Compared to the 13 Pro Max, this thing is down on power, it doesn't shoot ProRes video, the sensors aren't as big and stuff like that. So if you're really into your cameras, then maybe go with the 13 Pro or 13 Pro Max. But for those of you who really want a 12 Pro Max, let's talk about that. This thing does a great job of capturing images in a variety of lighting situations. Its relatively large sensor helps its case in low light, where the normal 12, 12 mini and 12 Pro would struggle more with their smaller sensors. And in normal and good lighting conditions, the tele and ultra wide cameras perform as well. In those tougher conditions, the aforementioned extra cameras do tend to struggle with less overall clarity and accuracy compared to the main, but this is to be expected of any phone whose main camera is the superior sensor. Apple's color science, which is to say the way it processes color and contrast, is a love or hate thing. I have to say I'm not a fan of the way it looks. It boosts shadows way too much to create almost a fake looking image. I do like my images to have a bit more contrast in them, and thanks to ProRAW you can edit your images to have them look a little bit more like how you'd want them to. However, the boost of saturation and lack of contrast doesn't really do it for me, and I prefer Samsung's processing. This isn't particularly the iPhone 12 Pro Max's fault, but it's just something that Apple does. It can still hang with the big boys in the top 5 smartphone cameras behind the iPhone 13 Pro, Pixel 6 Pro and the S21 Ultra. Impressive stuff, it just lacks that extra hardware oomph. So, is it worth buying for over £700? Well, if you want one specifically, yes. However, if you want a smartphone that can do more, I would recommend the Samsung Galaxy S20 Ultra, and S21 Ultra is actually coming down in price as well. Both those smartphones deliver better screens, better camera hardware, better battery life in my experience, and I think they look way nicer and they feel more ergonomic. But that isn't to say the 12 Pro Max is a bad smartphone. I would own one, absolutely, and I think they are really, really good for the money. I say that with a big asterisk, of course. It is still £700, it's just a lot cheaper than the base price. And I think that's where I'm going to end today's video, guys. So thanks to Vodafone for sending this smartphone out for review. Really, really nice of them to do so, and it was good fun to experience it again. I want to give a massive shout out to my patrons for being continually supportive. Please do like, comment and subscribe if you're new around here to never miss a video like this one. Check out all my socials in the video description. I've been Ryan Thomas, and I'll catch you later. Peace.